So to convert a percentage into a fraction, you first need to take away the percent sign and then put that number in a fraction with a denominator of 100. You reduce the fraction into simplest form in order to complete the problem. So for 25%, 25 is our number. We take the percent sign away and we write it over 100. This fraction can be simplified because both the numerator and denominator are divisible by 5. If I divide the top by 5, I get 5, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So I end up getting 5 over 20, but that's still not completely simplified. Both of these numbers are still divisible by 5, and I end up getting 1/4. So we do the same thing on the next one. Even though there is a decimal in 37.5, we're still just going to take away the percentage and write it over 100. Now this one isn't as nicely divisible as some of the others that we have, but it is divisible by 2.5 on the top and on the bottom. So if I divide 37.5 by 2.5, I end up getting 15. And if I divide 100 by 2.5, I end up getting 40. When I have 15 out of 40, those are both divisible by 5, and 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 40 divided by 5 is 8, so I end up getting 3/8 there. In my last one, I have 150%. I'm going to take the percent sign away, write it over 100, and then 150 out of 100 is simplified to 15 out of 10. Those are both still divisible by 5, and I end up getting 3/2. You could also rewrite that in a mixed number as 1.5. So both of those would be good final answers there. If you want to do the other way and convert a fraction back into a percentage, you first want to try to find a number to multiply the fraction by in order to make the denominator 100. But if it's not possible, you'll just need to convert the fraction into a decimal, as we've already learned how to do. And then you'll need to turn the decimal into a percentage, which we've also learned how to do. So if you're able to use the trick of getting a denominator of 100, that'll help you. If you can't, you'll just have to use your long division or remember what those decimal forms are. So for 5/9, there's nothing that we can multiply 9 by to make 100 in the denominator, so we're just going to have to figure out what 5/9 is. If you recall, 5/9 or anything over 9 just becomes the number repeating. So I have 0.555 repeating. That's the same thing as just having a bunch of 5s after the decimal. So in order to change this into a percentage, I would have to take my decimal, move it 2 spaces to the right, and I get 55.5. And the 5 is repeating in the tens place there because I would have kept going with this since we had 0.5 repeating. It never stops. We don't write that bar over the whole number part of this though because whole numbers can't repeat, only decimals can. Our last step is to add the percent sign, and there's our percentage form for 5/9. When we go into 3/10, this one's easy to change into a denominator of 100 because I can multiply the top and bottom both by 10 to get a denominator of 100. 3 times 10 gets me 30, and then 10 times 10 gets me 100. So if you have the fraction 30 out of 100, you can think about that as like a 30 out of 100 on a test. If you get 30 questions out of 100 right, you only scored a 30%, which isn't great, but it's a good way to remember that percents go out of 100. Finally, we have 5/8, and you can figure out a number to multiply 8 by to get to 100, or you can just use long division here. So we'll do an example with long division. If I want to divide 5 by 8, I have to add a decimal up top, which lets me put a 0 underneath. 8 times 6 gets me 48, and 50 minus 48 gets me 2. 8 can't go into 2, so I need to bring down another 0. But 8 can go into 20 2 times, and that makes 16. I subtract again and get a difference of 4. 8 can go into 40 5 times, and I end up getting a difference of 0, so I'm done. My decimal form here is 0.625. I move my decimal 2 places to the right, and I end up getting 62.5%.